Prince William's 83-year-old godmother has quit her role as Lady of the Royal Household amid an accusation of racism at a Buckingham House charity bash. The way Lady Susan Hussey questioned a charity worker about her heritage has prompted the royal family to issue an apology.
Nobody wants to say this out loud, so I will. The most consequential thing that happened at Buckingham Palace in the last 3 years was not a coronation. It was not a state visit. It was not a diplomatic announcement or a royal tour. It was a conversation at a charity reception, one that lasted a few minutes, became a global headline overnight, and set in motion a sequence of events that, when William eventually becomes king, will define exactly what kind of institution this becomes. Lady Susan Hussey asked a charity worker where she was really from. Those words cost Lady Hussey her position. They humiliated William's most trusted family ally in the most public way possible, and they happened at an event hosted by Camilla. William noticed. William remembers, and William does not forget. If you want to understand the real fault lines inside the House of Windsor right now, not the ones that make the front pages, but the ones that actually determine what this family's future looks like, this is where you start. Who Lady Susan Hussey actually is. Before this story can be properly understood, the scale of Lady Susan Hussey's significance needs to be established clearly. She is not a minor figure. She is not a peripheral courtier whose name would only be known to royal enthusiasts. She is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most important people the modern British monarchy has ever had in its inner circle. Lady Susan Hussey, Baroness Hussey of North Bradley, joined the royal household in 1960. She served Queen Elizabeth II for more than 6 decades as woman of the bedchamber, one of the most trusted personal roles in the entire institution. She was decorated with the Royal Victorian Order. She was a close personal friend of the Queen, someone who attended Balmoral, who traveled with the family, who was present at the most private moments of royal life. When Prince Philip died, when the Queen buried her husband of 73 years in one of the most quietly devastating moments she ever experienced publicly, she chose Lady Susan Hussey to sit beside her. Not a politician, not a head of state, not a foreign dignitary. Her friend, the woman who had been by her side for 6 decades. And she is William's godmother. She has been part of his life since before he could walk. He grew up watching her at his grandmother's side. The loyalty and affection between them is not ceremonial. It is genuine and deeply personal. When the November 2022 incident happened, it did not happen to a stranger. It happened to someone William loves. The night that changed everything. On the 29th of November 2022, Buckingham Palace hosted a reception focused on preventing sexual violence in conflict zones. It was Camilla's event, her cause, her guest list, her space. Among those invited was Ngozi Fulani, the founder of Sister Space, a London-based charity supporting women of African and Caribbean heritage who have experienced domestic violence. She was there as a guest, representing work that directly aligned with the evening's purpose. Lady Susan Hussey was also present, in her supporting role as a member of the royal household. What happened next, in a conversation between the two women, was published publicly by Fulani on social media. By her account, Lady Hussey repeatedly asked where she was really from, pressing the question even after Fulani stated she was from the United Kingdom. Hussey allegedly said at one point that she was determined to get to the bottom of it. Fulani described the exchange as deeply insulting. She said she experienced genuine distress, and when the transcript was published, the reaction was immediate and global. Buckingham Palace confirmed that Lady Hussey had stepped down from her role. A palace spokesperson described the comments as unacceptable and deeply regrettable. William was in the United States that day, on a 3-day tour with Catherine. The news reached him there, and his response, when it came, was not diplomatic. William's statement, and what it really meant. William's spokesperson issued a statement. Racism has no place in our society. 5 words. No names, no finger pointed explicitly. But within the specific context, William's godmother, Camilla's event, the palace hierarchy, those 5 words were anything but vague. Royal watchers understood immediately. This was not a general comment on racism in Britain. This was a pointed, deliberate, institutional signal from the Prince of Wales. A public assertion of where he stood, made at a moment when silence would have been diplomatically easier. William chose not to be silent. The tension this created between Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace was real and documented. Already strained by years of differing institutional priorities and competing visions for the monarchy's direction, the relationship between Charles's household and William's household now had a new source of friction, one centered on Camilla's event, Lady Hussey's humiliation, and William's public response to it. Camilla, for her part, issued no personal public statement. The palace press office managed the communications. The woman whose reception had become one of the biggest royal controversies in recent years remained personally and publicly silent throughout. The return, nobody reported properly. Here is the chapter of this story that received far less attention than it deserved. By February 2023, just 3 months after the incident forced her to step aside, Lady Susan Hussey was back. She represented Princess Anne at a memorial service, quietly resuming official duties as though the preceding months had been a pause rather than a permanent ending. Before her return, she and Ngozi Fulani met at Buckingham Palace. Hussey offered her sincere apologies. Fulani accepted them. A joint statement described the meeting as filled with warmth and understanding. Fulani confirmed she believed no malice had been intended. The reconciliation was genuine, but the political implication of Lady Hussey's reinstatement was even more significant than the apology itself. The institution had not abandoned her, the family had not closed the door, and the woman who had sat beside the Queen at the most intimate moment of her life was welcomed back, quietly, firmly, with the full weight of royal approval behind her. That is not the outcome of someone who has been written off. That is the outcome of someone whose value to the institution, and specifically to William, was never in question. The structural change Camilla made, and its consequences. There is a broader context to this story that rarely gets discussed, and it matters enormously. When Queen Elizabeth died, Camilla made a significant institutional decision. She abolished the traditional role of lady-in-waiting, a position that had existed in the royal household for centuries, and one that figures like Lady Susan Hussey had held and defined. In its place, she created a new designation, Queen's Companions, a role she redefined and restaffed according to her own preferences. This was interpreted in many quarters as Camilla asserting her authority, clearing out the old guard, creating space for her own appointments rather than inheriting the relationships and loyalties that had been built around Elizabeth. On one level, that is understandable. A new queen reshaping her household is not unprecedented, but the particular figures who were affected by that change, and the manner in which it was handled, left a residue of tension that the November 2022 incident brought sharply into focus. Because here is the thing about removing the old guard from official positions. It does not remove their loyalty. It consolidates it. It FTS it from an institutional channel into a personal one. Lady Susan Hussey is no less important to William for having had her formal title changed. She is, if anything, more personally aligned with him as a result of everything that has happened. And that alignment, when the next transition of power occurs, will carry real weight. What happens when William becomes king? This is the question that runs underneath all of it, and it is one that Camilla's inner circle, by all credible accounts, thinks about with considerable anxiety. When William ascends to the throne, the nature of Camilla's position changes fundamentally. She will move from Queen Consort, an active, powerful designation, to Queen Dowager, an honorary title associated with the memory of a reign rather than the exercise of one. Her schedule, her platform, her companions, her public engagements, all of it becomes subject to decisions made by a king who, by multiple documented accounts, has only ever tolerated her rather than warmly embraced her. William has never fully reconciled the childhood he experienced with the presence Camilla represented in it. That is not a secret. Multiple royal biographers have documented it. It is part of the permanent texture of this family's emotional history. He is not cruel about it. He is not openly hostile, but he is clear-eyed, and the events of November 2022, the humiliation of his godmother at an event Camilla hosted, did not soften that clarity. The British monarchy does not make dramatic announcements about these things. It does not hold press conferences to announce that someone's influence is being reduced. It simply, gradually, and with great institutional patience, closes doors. When William is king, Camilla's door will not slam shut. It will simply, quietly, be left less and less open. Her title will remain on paper. Her authority will not. The Hussey incident was not the cause of this. The cause runs much deeper and much further back. but it was a moment that made visible something that had always been in there. A difference in how this institution is understood, and who, when the test comes, it actually belongs to. That is the full picture, from a charity reception in 2022 to the question that will define the monarchy's next chapter. Here is what I want to know from you. When William eventually becomes king, do you think he will handle Camilla's transition with the dignity the institution requires, or will his personal history with her change things in ways that the palace cannot manage quietly? That is a genuinely difficult question. Drop your answer in the comments. I am in there reading, and the conversations on this channel are always worth having. Not subscribed? Now is the time. Notifications on, because the next video connects this directly to the broader question of what William's monarchy actually looks like, and who is in the room when it begins. See you there.